My Hero Academia fans? They exist. That's what I would have said maybe 4 or 5-ish years ago if you asked me anything about the show. Now, I want to say it's different. I mean, don't get me wrong, but every community has their oddballs. And you can't tell me that at least half of this isn't just satire at this point. But I think part of why My Hero was getting such a bad rep at that point wasn't just because of its fans, but because the anime was at a relative slow point in its story. The first few seasons had All For One, who's depicted as our end-all be-all final boss. So when you get rid of such a key character, the latter seasons needed Horikoshi to build off of characters that weren't as developed. And that takes a while. Developing something, growing something, takes time. But if you're patient and smart with the process, it will pay off. Just like this channel, so if you watched up to here, subscribe so I can get 1,000 subs. Anyways, that's why the show is special to me, because of the growth that the characters receive, and how the audience's perspective changes with the characters, and the growth that I can look back at. While other people grew up with one or all of the big three, My Hero Academia is the first show that I've really grown up with, so I feel like it was kind of right to honor that with the video. I think part of why this resonates with me so much is that when reading a book or manga, or watching a show, they don't change in their terms of contents. However, one's perspective provides different viewpoints on the actions of a character that may or may not be intended by the author. For example, when I started watching My Hero Academia while I was younger, around 6th grade, initially, I was there for the hype train. Ooh, fighting. Ooh, rivalries. Ooh, buttons. Classic shonen just seemed so cool to me back then, but now looking back, my perspective has changed. One of the biggest changes in my perspective is in the sports festival clash between Todoroki and Deku. Back then, I saw Todoroki as a rather stuck-up brat with a somewhat unfortunate past, who had his name basically secured at the top. All while Deku was the underdog trying to claw his way up to where Todoroki's spot was, practically waiting for him. Now with the developments of the most recent and final season, I can look back now and I realize I couldn't have been more wrong. Deku at heart was and is a hero from the very start. Accolades mean nothing to him. He's someone who wanted to help others, and his battle against Todoroki tested his resolve. Even when faced with an already powerful opponent, he not only attempted to provide him mental clarity, but also help him grow stronger physically with his quirk. I now acknowledge that Todoroki's past sucked. Like, he only used his ice side because he wanted to reject his father and prove that he didn't need him. But my peewee 11-year-old brain couldn't really understand that. So when he actually uses his fire side thanks to Deku, 11-year-old me was just shitting the bed. But now, I view this as Deku already having won by saving someone, albeit from themselves. If you made it to this point in the video, I'm going to assume you've most likely watched a show, and based on that assumption, I'm going to assume that you've probably grown up with the characters. Now there's so many characters to choose from, but obviously, we've got to start with the most obvious, Deku. Deku, Izuku, Midoriya, whatever you want to call him, definitely has grown physically and mentally right before our eyes. In the first episode, this guy was so timid, and the thing is, I related to him 8 years ago, but I kind of relate to him now. Have I grown? I think the easiest way to associate Deku's growth is visually. Throughout the series, we see Deku's growth through something that anyone can relate to: clothing. What was this guy wearing in the first 3 seasons? But as unique as it was, it really did suit him. But his suit really represents just how innocent he was to everything. High school, heroing, hell, even talking to others. His mom actually made him the suit with no idea of what he was getting into. But you know, as the seasons progress, the fit keeps on getting better, and so does Deku as a character. Deku achieves his goal of helping and saving others, and does it in the most grand way possible. Except it's deeper than that. In the first 3 seasons, it was easy for Deku and for the audience to point out who's good and who's bad because of the context given to them. If All For One, the main antagonist of the show, is only written as an insane dude who doesn't have any sympathy for others, then yeah, it's easy for a character in the audience to say, yo, he's bad. But if you have villains with grounded motives as to why they do bad things, then the audience can actually relate. And slowly, the show switches from, man, I hate that dude, to, if I were in this position, would I do the same? The character who embodied this to me the most was Gentle Criminal. I still remember how much I hated this guy the first time I saw him. Through my eyes, he went for a goody two-shoes act of being such a refined gentleman, yet the high schooler, Deku, seemed to have better morals than the old-ass dude. But the more we learn about Gentle as the series progressed, the more we were able to have sympathy for him and tie his past to his present actions. Gentle always wanted to be a hero. The reason why he ended up as a criminal, not a villain, for a little bit, was because he constantly faced failure. He failed his licensing exam twice, got a guy seriously injured when he was trying to save him, and was disowned by his family because of that. From there he had a midlife crisis, and the thing is, I sympathize with him. Gentle's dream was to help others, and at that point he couldn't have been further from that, so he chased a fake dream. Gentle wanted his name to be remembered throughout history and committed crimes for publicity. He wanted people to acknowledge him. and as a result, Gentle settled for a fake dream that, on paper, had the same results as being a hero, but didn't stem from the same journey. To me, this now makes Gentle and Deku meeting one of the more pivotal points in the series that is overlooked. This was the arc where Deku had really sympathized with the villain, I'm putting air quotes around villain, for the first time. And that introduces two values that become really important for the latter half of My Hero Academia's story, and this video: empathy and sympathy. Deku's fight with Gentle showcased empathy because initially, the two were fighting for what they loved. In Gentle's case, he fought for La Brava, while Deku fought for everyone he cared about at UA. But while the two never told each other their pasts, they both experienced being told, believing, that they would never achieve their dreams, with Deku becoming the exception when he met All Might. So there's this full circle moment that comes around because Deku believes Gentle isn't a bad person, that there's more to him than his facade, and that means everything to Gentle. It eventually caused him to act on Deku's faith and undergo tremendous personal growth that results in one of my favorite scenes in the show. I genuinely teared up while watching this. As the show progresses, Horikoshi takes these characters that you wouldn't think twice about and adds a little bit of backstory with a dash of sympathy or empathy to transform the audience's perspective. But what about when it's the other way around? Something unique that I really hadn't seen before in any show when I was younger was making a villain sympathize for a hero. If you're a fan, then you probably know where I'm going with this. Big Stendenhall. Hero Killer Stain. Season 2 Stain was noticeably on a different level compared to his villain counterparts. He was introduced as someone irredeemable. He had 17 confirmed murders of pro heroes. Keep in mind that back then, the League of Villains was basically a clown fest because most of their efforts went to waste and it was either All For One or the gnome who was doing the dirty work. But when Deku, Todoroki, and Ida stopped Stain, I think everyone kinda wrote this dude off and that was raps for him. Until Stain solos a gnome that, keep in mind, only All Might and Endeavor were really capable of back then, and then he freezes everyone in fear with what's practically Conqueror's Haki. So how the hell does this dude go from being irredeemable final boss material to a respectable character? Well, it's the fact that 4 seasons and 23 kills later, he still sticks to his values. But he saved the man revered by a lot of fans including me, All Might. And just like the previous characters, it was through empathy. The thing about Stain is that he's still written as a human at the end of the day. Other characters like All For One and Shigaraki were devoid of values and personal weaknesses that many of us have. But even though Stain was pretty cooked in the head, in the end he still believed in a just society. And he was able to prove that when he deemed All For One as the biggest threat to that. All of this culminates into Stain finding All Might sort of sulking for himself. And to be honest, this scene speaks to me on the fact that All Might had constantly won for the majority of his life. This is the first time he's really felt defeated. He lost Deku, he lost his power, and now he's lost his resolve. He would have kicked All Might down here, but instead, he pulls him back up. And although nothing points to this being the case, I like to think this is where Stain realized he could make amends for his past, because the team up between him and All Might had to have been one of the most hyped moments in the series. But let's talk about the character that saved All Might more literally. Now this character is one that I think I can relate the most to. Ironically, I hated him for the first 5-ish seasons. Great Explosion Murder God Dynamite. For a while, Bakugo was a character I didn't understand. I only saw him as a guy that got in the way of Deku's goals and was a complete jerk. But now, after rewatching parts of the earlier seasons, I love this guy. Season 1 Bakugo was, a punk. He was fresh out of middle school, his ego was big, and life was good for him. Until he found out that Deku got into the same school as him. And this freaked Bakugo out. And that's something I can relate to. My freshman year, I can say I was sort of the same, tweaking out when people ended up excelling or doing better than me at something I thought I was good at. But now, I'm still the same. Does that mean I haven't grown? Has nothing changed? Well, no, not exactly. While how I observe something, the input, might be the same, my reaction, the output, has. I have grown in how I react, which is way better than it sounds. And that is also a prominent occurrence in My Hero Academia. Bakugo's growth has occurred over 8 seasons, not 1. Initially, he was stubborn and arrogant, but realistically, he already had started changing when he saw Deku as more than someone beneath him. Honestly, he really just went through the 7 stages of grief. He was shocked when Deku got into UA, and he was in denial for a solid minute too. Then he got angry and started scrapping with Deku, and yeah, he definitely bargained with the idea that Deku was better than him. I think this would count as depression, but it's also acceptance and hope too. And then we've got absolute bonkers, 100% confidence, off the rails, no holding back. This was honestly my favorite part in the final season. Sorry, Deku. But it's not that Bakugo has a shift in mindset, but it's also the fact that he acknowledges he was wrong. He was a jerk, and now he started to take action to make up for that. Bakugo sees Deku as a rival in which he can better himself, but also backs up Deku because Bakugo doesn't want to lose to someone who can help him grow. A lot of scenes in this show have moved me in ways that I can't put on paper, or on a screen in this case. But my dear viewers, remember this. Sympathy and empathy are something that can't be taken for granted. The people around you can't be taken for granted. If you want to grow, you need to meet others, and to have those people stick around, you gotta try and understand where they come from or who they are. Don't brush off someone just because they killed 17 people. Just kidding, just kidding. but don't brush someone off because of their looks or their past. My hero has always been about giving someone a second chance. So think hard about who you want to hang with, and once you figure out who you want to stick with, make sure you push each other to be better, because who knows, 8 years down the line you'll be able to look back and see how far you've come. And you know what? Even though you may have grown over the course of 10 years, some things never change.